All right, everybody. I think Instagram is live. Oh boy, let's see. Ah. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to Joel's College of Swing Era Knowledge, Sunday Teacher and Organizer edition. Hope you're all doing well out there. That's right, Joel's College of Swing Era Knowledge. Every night I'm going live, 7 o'clock, Monday night jazz, Tuesday Charleston, Wednesday Lindy Hop and Jitterbug, Thursday evening swing here in Spokane, Friday shag, Saturday Balboa and Bell swing, Sunday a discussion for teachers and organizers. So tonight, let's get everybody online a little bit. Looks like Instagram is letting people know we're going live. Facebook, give me a shout out if you're out there. We have a very special talk this evening. All right, we're going to talk about, let's get that music off for a second. So this evening, I would like to chat with everybody about diversity versus specialization. And could be for organizers, and I'll talk to you about how and why I think that could be the case. But for the most part, this is for teachers out there. Teachers, yes, thank you. Happy birthday to me. Thanks for joining in on my birthday night. Had a nice day with all my girls. So this is the first time, truth be told, the second time I've been on my computer today. So it's been a good non-social media, non-screen day up until now. So let's get to the meat of tonight's conversation. The topic is diversity versus specialization. Now, yeah, happy birthday, yes. And I used to call this, when I would chat about this in certain teacher training, sampling versus mastering, but I'm kind of bringing everything full circle here. All of this stemmed from a time when Richard Powers was in San Diego for a vintage dance weekend. And for those of you that don't know Richard Powers, you should if you're a teacher. He's got all kinds of resources. I've included one link in the description of a lot of articles that he has online. Richard is an instructor at Stanford University, not Harvard, although that was on a Catalina Swing Festival flyer. Woo, those were the days. So Stanford University, Richard Powers, dance historian, an amazing resource, an amazing instructor. And he has a paper out there about vertical and lateral thinking. This is a little bit different than diversity versus specialization, but it's all coming together because he gave that talk, and that really got me thinking about some things. And then I don't know why over the years I labeled it sampling versus mastering. And I knew I wanted to do this talk, and I reached out to him and said, I'm thinking about doing this, and I thought you had a paper on sampling versus mastering, to which he said no. And then I was like, wait a minute, where is this coming from? So that got me looking into his paper, which I included the link on vertical versus lateral thinking. I'm thinking sampling versus mastering, but when he was talking to me, he brought up a good point. Sampling, thinking about things as far as like a sampling culture, has kind of a, we'll just label it as maybe a little bit of a negative connotation to be a sampling culture, although I believe we are nowadays, but I don't want to label this talk as such. And mastering has a little bit of an ego thing to it, which I'm also not a fan of. So rather than label it sampling versus mastering, we're going to dive into diversity versus specialization. And so as an instructor, let's take the instructor spin on this, first of all. Let me start off with saying there's nothing wrong with either one of these particular ways of thinking, and there's nothing wrong if you want to specialize or if you want to diversify. But what I do want to bring up as a dance teacher, especially if you're going to be a swing era dance teacher, and again, I got to be careful what I say here, because there are people that just want to be a Lindy Hop teacher. Great. There's people that only want to be a blues teacher. Great. There's some people that only want to teach Balboa. Fantastic. I've brought this up before. Back in the day when Valerie and I first started, late 98, we quit our jobs, started a dance company in 99. And in Cleveland, Ohio at the time, we just soaked it all up. We did everything. And when I mean everything, we did everything. We watched all the tapes. We tried to reach out to all the original teachers and masters, and tried to hone our craft in a lot of different things, with our goal of being a swing dance community. So there's the organizer spin on it. If you're a community leader and you want to have a swing dance community, then you really want to listen in tonight. If you're a teacher and you really want to promote the entire swing era versus one particular dance in the era, then this is where you need to diversify. You need some diversity rather than specialization. Now, I'll point the finger at myself for a second. I think I specialize very greatly in Balboa. That's something that Valerie and I took to, and we've met so many masters. We've done so many workshops. We've taken so many workshops that we've really specialized in the ways of Balboa, more so than, let's say, for me personally, let's say blues. Although I've done a lot of blues workshops, and I've done some 1920s blues, some historic blues, and whatnot, my depth in blues is not as great as Balboa. Does that mean I don't know of it? No. Does that mean I can't dance it? No. And that's like to the surprise of a lot of people. At a dance, a song will come on that will call for blues type dancing, and I'll do that. And they're like, I didn't know you were a blues dancer. And I always, or somebody will say like, I didn't know you knew shag, or I didn't know you. That's fine. It doesn't matter. But then I always answer the same way. And I said, well, I'm a swing dancer. So this is the challenge that I put out to you as teachers, to hone your craft. Not even if you're the hometown teacher versus a teacher that wants to be like an international traveling instructor. And again, I'm not saying you have to 100% know all of these different dances. But if you're going to represent the era, then let's try to have some diversity versus specialization. So that's kind of the meat of today. And so I put a little equation on the notes, on the topic, the title of tonight's chat, if you can take a look at that. I put it in the event, a comment in the event post. And the equation is GT equals QOM cubed plus LH plus C plus J squared plus B squared plus S minus E. Now, let's define each one of these very quickly. GT, great teaching. All right, GT, great teaching, equals QO, quality of M cubed, quality of material, quality of movement, quality of music. Yeah, so great teaching equals quality of movement, material, and music plus, and again, for me personally, thinking about diversity, LH, Lindy Hop, plus C, Charleston, plus J squared, Jitterbug and Jazz, plus B squared, Balboa and Blues, plus S, Shag, minus E. Anybody know what E is? Type away out there very quickly if you're watching at home. What do you think minus E could be in our equation? Great teaching equals quality of movement, music, and material, plus Lindy Hop, Charleston, Jitterbug, Jazz, Balboa, Blues, Shag, minus the E. Looking. Nobody's typing. Everyone's afraid to guess. Minus E. Minus the ego. Minus the ego. I do a lot of teacher training talks, and without a doubt, one of the things I always talk about is remember what it's like. Excellence, I like that, but it's minus E. So I don't want to negate the excellence that we're bringing to the table as teachers, but I want to get rid of the ego, because you have to remember where you came from with this. We all started as beginners. We all started with the basic rock step, whatever basic dance you started with. We stumbled, we fumbled, and we worked harder than most to kind of get to the level where we're at. When you're teaching, it is your job to get them to the level you want them to be versus assuming they should be at a certain level here, there, anywhere. But I'm getting ahead of myself with other teacher training. So we're going to stick to diversity and specialization. So the reason I bring up this equation is something I bring up in a lot of my teacher trainings. Okay? And so I'll type in what the definitions are actually at the end of my chat real quick on a note. And so again, if you're going to be a swing era instructor, not that you have to, again, specialize or master any particular one of these things. You might have a favorite, or you might just have a little more knowledge of one than the other. But again, if you're going to represent the swing era, then you want to know about Lindy Hop and Charleston and Jazz and Jitterbug. Jitterbug, I label Jitterbug as 6-count swing, East Coast swing. Some people have it different labels. That's just my particular label. Balboa and blues, like there's the end of the spectrum, right? The fast dance and the slow dance, if you had to like label it in general, right? And S for the shag, collegiate shag, St. Louis shag, all of that stuff. Having a little bit of knowledge in each of those gives you an opportunity to talk very richly with your students. So in this time of quarantine, here's the challenge I put out to all of you as instructors. Again, regardless if you're working hard to become this international superstar instructor traveling the world, or you're just the person that does the weekly dance in your hometown for 10 people. Think about the equation that I just said. All those dances represent the swing era. Lindy Hop, Charleston, Jitterbug, Jazz, Blues, Balboa, Shag, Collegiate Shag, St. Louis Shag. Is there any one of those that you have no clue what it is? Is there any one of those that you feel you're a little short on the knowledge of the history? Or if somebody asked you to teach a half-hour taster in one of these, you're like, no way I can do it. Again, I'm not asking you to master any one of these things, right? There's certain teachers that can go and do an entire 10-hour weekend on any one of these topics or all of these topics. You don't have to be that person. But to give your scene the best representation of what was going on in the era that you're teaching, you'd want to dabble, have a little bit of diversity in all of these things. So diversity is taking yourself this way across all of the dances. Specialization is diving down on any one of these. So you could label it diversity versus specialization. You can label it width versus depth. I used to call it sampling a bunch of little things versus mastering either way. But thank you, Richard, for the tip, because I think a sampling society or a sampling mentality has a little bit of a negative connotation. And then mastering does bring in a little bit of ego, which is exactly what we don't want. We want to take away the ego. So diversify your teaching. Take this opportunity to reach out to some of the people that you know that might be more well-versed in some of these dances and ask for a Zoom private or some information or some notes. With that said, I have, I'm not going to go over them in detail, but I have resources if you are interested. So for those that donate, I have a one-page document of every every Lindy Hopper should know. And this isn't the be all end all. You might come up with 4 or 5 other things, but it's a really good resource. People, movements, books and documentaries, classic routines. This is something I would consider. Again, these are things I share with teachers in my teacher topic training to see if they're well versed in the ways of Lindy Hop. So $10 or more, you get that. Shameless plug. And then I have a 2-page document. Again, I'm a little more specialized in Balboa. So I have every Balboa dancer should know. 2 pages of goodness. Do you know who the big 4 are? Do you know who the 5 gal are's? If not, you should. So you can share that with your Balboa students. All right, and finally, one thing that I really enjoy doing in my full teacher training after going through a whole bunch of stuff is dances of the swing era. And what I do is I break down the core rhythm, the quality of movement, some foundation figures, and any movie clips or inspiration, classic stuff that you can find. It includes Charleston, Lindy Hop, Jitterbug slash swing, Balboa bell swing, collegiate shag, St. Louis shag, blues, jazz movement, and then historically, some of the kind of pre-swing dances, cakewalk, Texas Tommy, one-step, tap, waltz, and foxtrot. Again, this is a nice resource for any teacher out there. Again, just as a quick look at, these are all the things that could have been going on. And then it's a nice checklist for yourself. Are you knowledgeable in all of these things? Again, not on a specialized or a mastery level, but just having enough knowledge to maybe share with your students. Because maybe there's a student out there that really wants to get into St. Louis shag, and you want to be able to point them to the right resources, or at least be able to talk about it briefly and let them go and run with it, or blues, or collegiate shag, or Lindy Hop, or Dean Collins Lindy styles versus Frankie. Like, there's so much rich history to this dance that, in my opinion, in today's day and era, to hear somebody say like, well, I'm just a blues dancer, it's okay, but it kind of really puts you in a little box compared to where we could be. And so I want to bring up another thing that Richard had told me, and I remember this too, working back with Frankie and Norma and those cats back in the, when they were talking about back in the day. And you'll see a lot of people talking about things like swing walk. And there's clips of the Savoy Ballroom where they point out like somebody's doing the Lindy Hop, but you can see in the back, there goes that couple zipping across the floor. And Richard said that when Frankie and Norma would come to Stanford and they'd go to their dances, Frankie and Norma would say, why are you guys only doing Lindy Hop? And I think that's extremely telling. Here's the 2 greatest Lindy Hoppers alive coming to your dance and saying, why are you doing only Lindy Hop? Where is your walk? And what they meant by that is the swing walk, or one step, or Peabody, whatever you want to label it again, right? So back in the day, when you were a swing dancer like Frankie and Norma, they did all of it. And when I say all of it, they did the Latin numbers, they did waltzes, foxtrots, they did everything. So nowadays, to specialize yourself into one area, again, it's not wrong, but let's be swing dancers. Let's be swing dance teachers. And then again, on the organizer side, what's interesting, and I feel like I'm so guilty of what I'm about to say, because in the early days, Valerie and I would bring out different instructors like at least 3 or 4 times a year. And the schedule was really diverse. Like we would have like Lindy, and then some shag, and then some blues, and then maybe another little style of Lindy, and some other offshoot or some other dance that the teaching couple that was coming in wanted to share. But it was like this real diverse weekend of different topics that you can take. Well, again, we kind of got a little bug for Balboa, and we talked to Sylvia, and we started that whole all Balboa weekend thing, and the little monster was made where now there's all Balboa weekends all over the world. And with that said, they're like Stephen Chanzy started the LA Shag Festival, and there's shag weekends that are just devoted to shag for the weekends. And blues especially has created its own little niche. And so like there's a lot of blues only weekends. And again, please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not saying those are bad things or wrong things. But as an organizer, maybe think outside the box and offer something for your community that's a little more diverse versus specialized. Valerie chimed in, they knew all the dances because the musicians played all styles of music in an evening. Yes, Valerie, thank you. I wanted to mention that. So not only is this a teacher slash organizer little chat, but also for you DJs out there. Think about your set lists. How much diversity do you have in there? How often do you play a slower song tempo-wise versus faster versus a Latin feel versus throwing in a waltz? You want to see something really fun? Put a waltz song on during a swing dance. Sit back and enjoy people trying to do jitterbug and Lindy hop to a waltz. Anyway, I digress. So there's the story of, like I said, Richard had said about Frankie and Norma saying, why are you only doing Lindy hop? And then, oh my goodness, where did my notes go? Okay, and I want to bring up some other specific examples. Okay, so before I go on to that, one more thing that I found interesting. Oh, okay. There's, if you look it up, I put it on my phone and I can't look at my phone now because I'm using it for Instagram. There's that term, jack of all trades, master of none. And you hear that, and so you think that the mastering part is less important, but yet there's another line to that whole phrase. Oh, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. Please look it up. Look up the full term of jack of all trades, master of none. Jack of all trades, of course, thinking like you're going to diversify or sample, like you're just trying everything. You know, master of none. So you don't become really, really, really good in any one of them. But there's a whole nother line to that phrase, and I should have wrote it down, but I didn't. But I want you to look that up. That's homework for you. Jack of all trades, master of none. Look up the full verse of that. That thing's been around since I think 1592 or something like that. And I think I read something about it being first used in the United States and Canada in 1612. Like we're talking way, way, way back. So I bring that up because that's a very common phrase, right? With regards to this sampling versus mastering, diversity versus specialization, depth versus width, whatever you want to call it. On my website bio, I put down this because this is how I feel about it. To preserve a dance, you must understand the technique and the characteristic fundamentals of that dance. For a dance to evolve, you must be open to everyone adding creative elements to that dance, whatever that dance is. I encourage students and teachers to study and be open to differences so that they can make the dance their own. So that's from my like little website bio. I usually send that to people when they ask like, well, what about you and your dancing? And this brings up a little bit of the chat or the paper that you can print off as far as vertical and lateral thinking. So you have technique and characteristics of any dance, okay? And so if we think about, I want to pick out some specific points that Richard brings up in his paper. Yes, okay, this is the one, the illegal moves. I like this. So vertical thinking selects a pathway by excluding other pathways, leading to the jokes about illegal moves in the movie, like Strictly Ballroom. Like there's only these certain moves that you have to do. Lateral thinking does not restrict, but seeks to open up new pathways. Okay? And then with regards to the dance, different dance forms require different mindsets. It should be clear from all of Richard's essays on his site that social dance forms require a lot of lateral thinking to be successful, because the dances typically weren't just born of one thing, right? They're a mishmash of all kinds of things that came before it, or as it progressed, other things that might be in. Okay, and so it takes a lot of lateral thinking to be successful. Lateral thinking enables us to adapt to the constantly changing situations found on the dance floor and to different partners, right? So just even the mindset of when you're dancing with somebody. Lateral thinking enhances the creativity and self-expression of social dancing, and so on, going down De Bono's list that defines lateral thinking. De Bono is someone he references in the paper. Okay, and then the last one I want to bring up, again, you can read the details of this. I gave you the link. Is one of the strangest mismatches you'll find in the dance world is when someone applies rigidly vertical thinking, a vertical thinking attitude, to a lateral thinking dance form, like Lindy hop, Argentine tango, West Coast swing, salsa, or blues. Those dances were born and bred in cultures which valued spontaneity, flexibility, and individuality. The original spirit of those dances is lost when their freedom is replaced by an emphasis on rules and restrictions. Now, this is like some deep stuff, but it's so good. But it makes sense now when you look at the current generation of things. And if there's an emphasis on a competition, when you have competition, you obviously need to have some sense of rule and regulation. Hence the strictly ballroom joke, like no new steps, right? You have to be like, do things a certain way. And I'm bringing this up again more so for the organizers and how you might run your competition. Again, please don't take this chat the wrong way. I'm not saying things have to be right or wrong. You might have a competition where you're looking specifically for this particular thing, and there's nothing wrong with it, but you're gonna like really label that thing versus it being more diverse, right? And so certain competitions are a little more open than others, like in the Lindy Hop world. That's why we have like a Lindy Hop classic division versus an open division versus a showcase division. Each one of those has a different specialty that judges are looking for. But what's interesting is in creating competition for social dances, that also tends to limit some things as far as the creativity goes, because there's certain creativity that people might have that people may not appreciate because it's done in a certain competition. I'm going to cut to the chase right now and bring up a cat that I've watched for many, many years, Todd Yannicone. And if you've ever watched Todd and Irina dance Balboa, it's not everyone's cup of tea, and I know this from discussions on all ends. But I appreciate the creativity that Todd brings to his Balboa with Irina. There's a couple, look up Todd and Irina Balboa. Again, some of you might be out there going like, "Oh, you didn't just say that." But again, for me, I'm going to go back to my bio. To preserve a dance, you have to understand the technique and characteristics. So I see the Balboa in what Todd and Irina are doing. But in order for a dance to evolve, you've got to be open to people adding their own creative elements. And you have to appreciate these differences. And so that's where it gets tough for me. I often find myself, man, I'm not kidding, at certain events, if I judge, I'm kind of the oddball. A lot of times I'll be like, Joel placed this couple like top 4, and everyone else put them as like last place or second to last. And I know why, and I get it. And I'm not saying someone's right or wrong, but I enjoy watching people put creativity and different things into a dance. And I try really hard not to label it so much that has to be a Balboa move or whatnot. On the flip side of it, I am totally guilty of watching this like really cool move from some other dance and say, I wonder how I can tweak that to look and feel more like Balboa. Right? So rather than just doing the move as the move, I tweak it a certain way because I know the powers that be aren't going to like it if it's not Balboa-fied or bluesified or Lindy-fied. And again, that is our specialization. That's our like mastering, like trying to label it, trying to have that vertical thinking versus the lateral thinking. And it's not an easy place to get to, right? And so tonight's talk is a pretty pretty heady topic when you get down to it. Please read Richard's article on vertical versus lateral thinking. This is very helpful. As a teacher, I encourage you to diversify, specialize in things that you're personally very interested in, but diversify for, have diversity in your swing dance community. I encourage you so much after this whole thing is over with. It's going to be so important for us to offer the opportunity to socialize and to be with people and to dance with people on a level that'll be unparalleled once we get back to some sense of normal. I don't know when that is, but it's going to be important for everyone all over the nation, all over the world, to experience the joy of, and I'm, of course, kind of boom, funneling us into swing era dancing. But maybe you're watching this and you're a tango instructor or a salsa instructor. I know there's different forms of salsa and different forms of tango. That makes me want to like dabble a little more in the other dances that I'm not so well versed in. And maybe I'll throw a tango on the next time I DJ a swing dance or a little Latin number just to have fun with it. Why? Because we need to dance all of it. We need to experience the joy of all forms of music and all forms of dancing. As organizers, you control that into how you organize your event. What classes are you offering? What DJs? What bands? What's the feel of the weekend? All right, at the end of the day, if it's the all Balboa weekend, we know what we're going to get and we love it. But if you have the opportunity to bring other teachers in for your own small community and try different things and give them a feel for other things and diversify, work on that. Use this time during being in to reach out to people that you might know have other dance forms under their belt. Reach out to Richard Powers. He is a huge resource in the pre-swing and all things teaching. And again, this is for all of you instructors that want to go out there and travel the world, because this will also give you the opportunity to share so much more of yourself and your skills with the ability to teach all of these different dances. And if you're the hometown hero, how amazing would it be to create a dance where everyone is together all the time versus sending someone to the blues room and these other 3 people to the shag room and these 4 people to this room, and rather than having them all together. You have that choice when we get out of this quarantine to create a swing dance community, all right, and diversify your swing dance community versus specialize your individual groups. Not saying they're right or wrong. You all have that opportunity. So I will type up my little equation for great teaching. I hope you enjoyed tonight's very deep chat on diversity versus specialization. And what other notes did I have? I think that should do it. Yes. Oh my gosh. I feel like every night I try to keep things to 30 to 40 minutes. And without a doubt, I feel like towards the end, I could go another hour or 2. I really am enjoying sharing this. It's a little weird for me because I do love to like feed off the energy of my students and the crowd around me. And so I hope you guys are enjoying these as much as I am. I'd love to be a resource to you. If I can be helpful in any way in organizing the organizer side of things for your community, or if you want to be an international traveling teaching star, if you just want to work on your local stuff, please reach out to me. Let me know how I can be helpful in helping you develop curriculums, organize an event in a way that feels more diverse versus specialized. If you want to specialize your event, I'm all for that too. Bell Rendezvous, all Bell Weekend. Like we've hit the full spectrum, I think. And now that we have a time to sit here and really kind of hone our skills, please do so. Diversity versus specialization, sampling versus mastering, depth versus width, vertical thinking versus lateral thinking. Deep stuff tonight for you to get into. Thank you for tuning in. As always, I'm Joel. This is the College of Swing Era Knowledge. Monday, Jazz. Tuesday, Charleston. Wednesday, Lindy Hop and Jitterbug. Thursday evening swing right here in Spokane based on our community's votes. Friday shag, Saturday bell bell swing, and Sunday nights. Tonight's chat was for teachers and organizers. I hope you enjoyed. You'll see in the notes above. If you donate, I will send you gold when it comes to your own self-knowledge as a teacher, but for your community as well. Please donate. I'd love to have a happy birthday. It is April 12th, my birthday. Donate away. Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, all the dancers, for doing what you do. And as always, night, night. Crazy about you. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to me.